You know what? I was thinking about something since your last visit. You only seem to come here for my stories. I mean, you never stop in just to say hi, or to say, hey ghost host, how's it going? Oh no, you just want to be terrified. Well fine then, if that's all you want, then that's what you get. Our first story tonight comes from an OP that can't seem to talk to any girls without a ghostly chaperone. This story is called, 3 People Saw Ghosts Behind Me. Am I Haunted?
When I was 17, about 5 or 6 years ago, something strange happened during a video chat with a girl I had been talking to. Out of nowhere, she told me she could see a man standing behind me. Sometimes he was there, and other times he wasn't, but every time she mentioned him, she looked deadly serious. I didn't see anything, so I brushed it off, thinking she was joking. Still, the way she described him unnerved me. Eventually, I stopped talking to her, and the incident faded from my mind. A couple of years later, I was on another video chat with a different girl. This time, I didn't mention anything about the first girl's experience. Why would I? But during one of our conversations, she suddenly asked me, "Who's the man standing behind you?" I got really surprised. I turned to check, but as before, there was nobody there. When I told her that she wasn't the first person to see this mysterious man, she said she often sees ghosts. With time, we'd grown apart, and I stopped talking to this girl. For a long time after that, nothing unusual happened. I lived a normal, quiet life, and the thought of those eerie video chats became less of a concern. But then, just recently, I started talking to another woman over video chat. She didn't know anything about the previous incidents. Yet during one of our conversations, she told me she saw a blurry figure behind me. This time, it wasn't a man, it was a woman, just standing there, smiling. Her face wasn't clear, and before I could ask much more, she said the figure disappeared. I'm confused and scared. What does all of this mean? It's been years, and while nothing terrible has happened in my life, I can't shake the unease this brings. Now I can't help but wonder who or what has been silently watching me all this time. Perhaps it is an angel, but keep in mind that I am not a religious person. However, I do believe in the existence of ghosts and demons. Should I be worried? Maybe someone has experienced something similar?
Do you really want to know what this all means? It means that ghosts have no concept of privacy. I mean, there you are, talking to a girl, and poof, a ghost pops up behind you, watching everything you're doing. How rude. Next, we have one from a guy in the UK that worked at a hospital and has an experience as he worked a night shift in radiology.
I worked in the radiology department in a hospital in Cardiff, Wales, UK for about 3 years as an admin and clerical officer before getting a promotion working in medicine. During these 3 years I saw a lot of things ranging from patients passing away in the MRI scanners to patients having an X-ray for inserting a meat thermometer into their urethra. Nights always seemed the craziest. One time a patient came in with armed police after an altercation which involved a knife in the middle of the city centre, and just so happened the person he had the altercation with was having an X-ray too. This caused a second altercation right in front of me. Chairs were thrown, a trash bin or two, and then wheelchair. So I have seen things, some funny, some stressful, some sad and many bonkers. But this one night, something scary. I would start a night shift about 1900 hours, then would work till 8:30 the next morning. This was the standard night shift for our department. We would usually do 3 nights in a row before doing 4 days off. After the 3rd night you were ready to sleep for a week. The strange thing was this was my first night of the 3, so not at all tired. It started off normal. I arrived at the department, took over from the day staff. Logged into my PC. During this time we usually would set up our phones or tablets to watch movies or the latest TV series, as there would be a lot of downtime between patients. Like I said, the first few hours nothing that interesting, just your average run-of-the-mill night in radiology. Then it came to my break. Now before I tell you more I should probably explain the layout of this hospital. This hospital is the largest in Wales. It's a teaching hospital, and it's pretty old. Now the best way to get from A to B in this hospital is through what we call the tunnels or the catacombs. These consist of very dimly lit corridors, old abandoned rooms, tunnels and other creepy decrepit areas. The morgue is also found in these corridors. So it's not a nice place to be during the day, let alone the middle of the night. But it's the quickest way to get places, if you're staff. There's always been rumors and mumblings of strange things happening in these tunnels. Some people say they saw ghosts in old-fashioned porter uniforms taking wheelchairs to pick up patients. Others say they have seen shadows following them from the corner of their eyes. But one person has claimed they were attacked by a person wearing an old nurse's uniform from the 70s. This place is creepy even at the best of times. But for me, never really fazed me. I've been down there hundreds of times before. The worst experience up to this point was having a sluice pipe drip human waste on my head. That in itself was a horror show. But tonight would be something altogether different, and maybe not even of this physical world. Like I said before, very quiet night. I had been watching the latest series of One Piece because I'm a geek. During my downtime, then a radiographer or radiology technician for my American friends out there came to take over and cover me for my break. I decided to go to the 5th floor where the Sanctuary, multi-faith chapel, was located. On a night shift it was one of the most peaceful places in the hospital. But to get there I had to walk through the tunnels to reach the nearest elevator. I set off on my journey, which would usually take about 15 minutes. Scanned my key card on the main entrance to the tunnels, then proceeded to walk through. 2 minutes in I started to feel like someone was walking behind me. It being a busy hospital and basically the tunnels acted like the highway, I didn't think anything of it. Suddenly I heard panting like someone was trying to catch their breath after going for an intense run. So I turned around to check and saw nothing. A bit strange, but thought it was nothing. Maybe just one of the pipes above my head creaking or a generator pumping. So I carried on walking, but I kept feeling like someone or something was watching me and was walking behind me. Out of sheer confusion and fear I missed my turn towards the elevators and found myself in a large section of the tunnels that I have never been before. Littered with old stretchers, beds, hospital furniture and equipment. Some of this stuff was over 50 years old, maybe older, just left to decay in a dark, smelly, decrepit and dusty corridor. This was starting to really creep me out because in all of this confusion I realized I was lost. It almost felt like I had fallen into the back rooms. Everything looked the same. I could feel a tightening in my chest and could feel the start of a panic attack. I remember clutching my chest and running down a corridor trying to find a signpost or something to tell me where I was. The sense that something was watching me got stronger. Suddenly, I felt something hit my arm in force, almost like someone using a baseball bat. I remember falling to the ground, pulled myself across the floor towards the cold, dusty wall and looked around frantically, trying to find an explanation to what the heck just hit me. Then something caught my eye. It was almost like a black mist, with glowing red eyes. It was about 20 meters away from me, just hovering in the middle of the corridor. Was this the thing that had been stalking me the entire time? I got back up and sprinted. I ran down what felt like 100 different corridors until I found a housekeeper, janitor. He asked me what was wrong, because I looked pale. But I couldn't get any words out. He then grabbed me by the arms with a firm grip and said, "Did you see it too?" That was the last time I ever stepped foot in the tunnels. To this day I hear rumors of strange things. I'm not sure what I saw that night. Maybe I was tired, maybe I was stressed, maybe it was something. Why else would the janitor ask me if I had seen it too? What else is down there? Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. I won't be going to find out. Thanks for taking your time to read this. Josh.
Well, Josh, can I call you Josh? Oh, okay, good. Anyway, Josh, at least you can't say your shifts are boring. Our next one is from an OP that had a truly terrifying experience as a child. It's called Scariest Ghost Encounter I Have Ever Had.
I have had a lot of scary and paranormal things happen to me, usually because I've always lived in older houses growing up. However, while they were all scary, nothing beats this experience I had back when I was a child. This happened back when I was like 10. My family and I were in between houses, and my great-grandfather told my parents that my family could live in his house. He was in a retirement home and was not going back to his house. I have been there a bunch growing up, and there was never anything too bad, maybe just some weird noises from empty rooms, like knocking or things falling over. However, when we moved and things got a little more scary. I don't know why, but we were only allowed to live on the first floor, and we could use the basement. The second floor was off limits to us. Honestly, I never liked the second floor, but it wasn't that bad. I only really started to hate it when the door to that lead to the stairs would open overnight. It was scary, and that I'm older, it might have just been my parents being snoopy. But this isn't about the second floor, this is about the basement. I hated that basement. It was a mostly finished basement with doors that lead to other rooms, and the only working light was the one above the stairs and the one in the main area of the basement. It was one of those hanging lights that was a single bulb and that you would have to use a string to turn on. Whenever I would go down there, usually whenever I was alone, it just felt off. Like it felt like something bad would happen or that something was watching me. Well, one day my mom asked me to go down to the basement to grab something from the deep freezer we had down there. I walked down the stairs, and everything is normal. That feeling is still there, but it wasn't worse than normal. I get to the deep freezer and open it. From behind me I hear someone fall from one of the side rooms. I panicked, but kept on looking for what my mom asked for. As soon as I found it, I shit you not, I heard footsteps behind me and I'd booked it to the stairs. I didn't even close to the deep freezer. I run up the stairs, and as I'm running I can hear something following me up the stairs, like really loud and booming footsteps. I get to the door of the basement, and I try to open it, but it was stuck, so my little 10-year-old body is slamming against the door trying to get out as the footsteps get louder. After like 10 seconds, I get the door open and slam it shut after I get through the door. I heard just one loud bang from the other side of the door, like someone punched the door. Like any child would, I go crying to my mom about what happened, and she told my dad. He looked through every nook and cranny of that basement and found nothing. Like nothing was out of place, nothing was left open, it was just as it was before my great-grandfather moved out. Safe to say, I never went in the basement alone again. I still have a slightly irrational fear of basements because of this.
Oh, I don't know. After what you went through when you were 10, it doesn't sound like your fear is all that irrational to me. Well, it's almost that time again, isn't it? But just because I'm such a generous ghost host, I'll tell you one more for the road. This one involves a children's hospital.
This is a story from my student placement at a children's hospital. The hospital was established as a military hospital in 1914 and was used in both WW1 and WW2. It was just shy of 100 years old when I was there. There were definitely parts of the hospital scarier than others, especially at night, but luckily I didn't encounter much myself. This is a story about one of the first wards I trained on. I was told that this ward was used as a fever ward in war times. Someone even said it was an open-air ward with no proper roof, but I don't know if that part is true. Night shifts were when the majority of weird things happened. I never did night shifts on this ward, but had been told many stories by the nurses and students while I was there. Cubicle 1. Cubicle 1 was said to be active at night. In the duration of time I was there was a baby in this cubicle. The baby was alone since the family had other children and couldn't stay overnight. The call button would go off throughout the night, despite the button being on the wall. There was also an incident of the baby's bouncer turning itself on overnight. The bouncer was battery-operated, meaning it would rock itself and play music. The bouncer was on the floor, nowhere near the baby. The staff did not like Cubicle 1 at night. The bay consisted of 4 beds and was previously used as a HDU section of the unit. There was one particular bed space that some nurses wouldn't go near, even on day shifts. There were multiple reports by multiple children who stayed in this bed of a military man coming to visit them. He usually stayed at the end of the bed and talked to the children. Nothing malicious, the children were never frightened, but the repeated stories of the same man made the staff uneasy. As a side note, the most haunted place in the hospital was supposedly the mental health unit. These stories are also from other staff and students who had been there. A matron was said to be a very prevalent spirit there, seen by many staff. One parent even took a photo of her and showed it to staff. There was a corridor, I don't know what it was used for or where it went, that had chairs placed as markers. Anywhere beyond that point, you were likely to bump into matron or someone else. I've been in a handful of hospitals for my training and career. You want a ghost story? Go to a hospital.
Yeah, no kidding. After all, not every visit to the hospital has a happy ending. Well, there you go. Were those stories too scary for you, or what? Well, do you know what is not scary at all? Hitting like, subscribe, and sharing this video, it'll really help us keep the ghosts at bay. And of course, if any of you have a story to share, or have any thoughts about our stories tonight, or if you have any suggestions on subjects for upcoming videos, or even just general thoughts about my channel, then by all means, drop me a line in the comments. But I do want to thank you for stopping by, and I hope the stories we told won't be giving you too many bad dreams. But if they do, then maybe you shouldn't run from them. After all, sometimes it's better to embrace your nightmares.